Hello, everyone. So, why horror movies? That's something my girlfriend asked me about a week or two ago, and it kind of got me thinking that I've gotten this question a lot since I started writing. Why write horror? Why watch horror movies? They're gory, they're gross, often terrifying. They don't always end well for the main characters and their friends. So, why watch something like that? So, for me, my interest in telling these sorts of stories didn't actually start with books. I know a lot of authors start along the lines of reading books and becoming captivated by it. And it's not like that I wasn't captivated by books. I have always loved reading. Goosebumps were a huge influence on me as a kid. So while books were an influence, I don't think they were the main thing that pushed me into being a creator. See, originally, I wanted to be an actor and director and move to Hollywood. But life happened, and I decided I wanted to stay in in my hometown where I could still be close to my family. So I had to find something else for my creative outlet. Never completely saying goodbye to movies and acting, but sort of trying to find a different outlet, at least for now. And I did through writing. But it all started for me with Evil Dead 2. Evil Dead 2 is obviously the sequel to the original that was directed by Sam Raimi. Raimi started starring Bruce Campbell and produced by Rob Tapert. I think the reason that Evil Dead 2 pushed me to want to be a filmmaker was not when I watched it for the first or even second time, but when I watched it with director commentary. And the commentary also had not only Sam Raimi, but it had Bruce and Rob Tapert, and they had such a blast talking about making this movie and what went into it as far as special effects, directing, acting, producing. All four of those aspects really interest me. So I wanted to make low budget horror movies. And that was kind of the start of it. I started writing my own scripts, my own screenplays, and there's even a couple of movies I did that are probably still floating around YouTube. You might be able to find them. I'm not I might share those someday, but we will see. So Evil Dead 2 was kind of the start of it, but then I started getting into other horror movies like Nightmare on Elm Street. Wes Craven and John Carpenter were huge influences on me, especially John Carpenter. In fact, The Thing is my favorite movie of all time. So when I write things, I sort of come at it at a not only a author point of view, but I think about it as a scene as well. It's been very often that I think very deeply about these characters as if I'm playing them as an actor too, and that gives me a whole different perspective because when I was wanting to be a filmmaker, studied I studied acting, directing, doing the music and producing, and learning about all those things through watching movies, going to auditions, and studying just how to make the craft was sort of my way to learn how to tell a good story. And when I write books now, it kind of gives me a different perspective as opposed to just purely a writer's perspective. And I think there's been a couple times where people have kind of pointed out that my fiction is sort of written like movies or TV shows in the style, and there's clear influences from all sorts of different works, but I never copy. But for me, films have been an exponential uh, influence on me. Not just horror films, there have been other movies too that have highly influenced me, but the fact that I have a set of movies that's all horror flicks and there's a lot of DVDs and Blu-rays, The fact that I have just a selection just for horror movies that are separate from everything else shows that I'm a giant fan. So let's get back to the question: why horror movies? I mean, they're scary, right? And that's the thing. It's to me, it's they're good character pieces. Yeah, there's a lot of bad horror movies, and those are fun to watch. And think I think when you get to a really good survival story, it sort of gets down to the humanity of the main characters because it's Aliens a great example where the crew members are getting picked off one by one, and then you have Ripley at the end, who is sort of the ultimate survivor, and the fact that she is there's a lot horror movies is also a good media for fantastic female characters. There's a lot of female led horror movies, and to me it's a good character strength because you get to see them overcome these great obstacles, whether it be a monster or a guy holding a knife. I think it's a great way to show how humanity can persevere and show how a person evolves from being either just a character who let's a good example I think is Kurt Russell's character in The Thing, where he's just a pilot. He doesn't want to be in charge of a bunch of people, but then this alien comes in and starts imitating all of his crew, and all of a sudden he's got to step up and be the main guy. And that sort of thing's fascinating to me. With my book Phantom Lock, Kurt Roberts, who is this psychic that sees terrible things that happened in the past when he touches objects, uses these abilities to solve paranormal crimes. And I think he has to do this because it's part of who he is, and the fact that he's 53 years old, he's not in his prime anymore, so that's another obstacle. And I think horror movies are a great way of showing of showing obstacles through, like I said, monsters, serial killers, or even just the environment itself can be something that is driven in a horror movie. I mean, look at something like Dawn of the Dead or 28 Days Later. Those are about infections, germs, things you can't really see, and then they manifest themselves in a physical form when they take over our loved ones. And that's another fascinating thing about horror movies too, is that they bring out our greatest fears that we don't always see in everyday life. And I think for some people it's even therapeutic at times too, because it's like you get this experience, this thrill, and it's like, oh, you survived. And the original Evil Dead for me was kind of that experience where it was so terrifying at the time that I watched it that it kind of terrified me for months. Kind of like how Jaws made me not want to go in the water, Evil Dead made me never want to go camping with a bunch of friends. So if you haven't given horror movies a shot, if you don't like being scared, maybe think about it as a character piece instead, and don't think about it so much as just a gore fest. Yeah, there's a lot of movies that are gore fest, but in my opinion, there's a horror movie subgenre that's out there for everybody. That's not like balls to the walls terror. There are some horror movies that even I can't watch, like Human Centipede and just movies like that. Cannibal Holocaust I will never watch because it's just those things. They're just disgusting. That's all they're out to do. Even with like the Saw movies, at least there's an interesting story with the Jigsaw killer's plan and legacy. At least I think that part is interesting, and how it affects main characters throughout the movie and past films and whatnot. It's like, yeah, Saw is a big gore fest, and I always take it as a learning experience too. That's why I go out of my way to watch not only really good and classic horror movies, but also really bad movies like Troll 2, which are enjoyable in their own way. But I think it's kind of cool to see how the other half lives. That's why I always recommend people who are wanting to get into movies. If you're people always say, "Oh, you gotta watch Lawrence Arabia, The Godfather." Let's see what else. The Dark Knight probably is one of the more recent ones. Uh, just those ones are terrific examples. But what about the bad ones? Bad ones can be influential too, and I think it's healthy to see how not to do things. And even then, when you watch a bad movie like Troll 2, there's some passion. There's some passion put in there, and at the end of the day, a movie that has passion in it is influential in my opinion. But when I watch movies, people typically watch movies and they see it for just kind of like entertainment purposes. But I always kind of look at it from a not only that, but at times I look at it as a creator. So I look at it from a director's point of view and actors and storytellers. So it's like I have all these different point of views that I come at it, and it makes it a fun experience for me. That's why I can watch movies several different times and get something new out of it every time. And it's like I'll point certain things about acting or the way that the camera was moved. Your average audience member maybe doesn't really notice that sort of thing, and and it's not everybody that doesn't notice that sort of thing, and there's nothing wrong with being that casual moviegoer. But for me, movies will always be a huge influence on my writing. From John Carpenter, Clive Barker directed 3 really good films. Wes Craven. Those 3 have been a huge influence on me. David Cronenberg too. The list goes on and on and on. Of course, Alfred Hitchcock, and and it's a history thing too. It's like it's funny in history class. I could not for the love of me remember all these historical figures I was supposed to remember for the test, but if you asked me a movie question, I could tell you the actors, the directors, probably the writers, who wrote the soundtrack, what year it came out, what year it came out on DVD, all sorts of things that seem useless to most people, but it's like if I went to film school, it'd be pretty useful. And a lot of people ask me, when I'm at book signings and I mention that I love movies so much, like, will you ever direct? I mean, never say never. There's a film contest. It's called 15-second horror movies that I've always wanted to participate in, and maybe I'll do that this year. I think I'll have the time, and I've got some friends that are in the theater and stuff, and the acting bug and directing bug inside of me has definitely been awakened more now so than it has been since I kind of quit with filmmaking. I did a fan film with a group of friends for a Star Wars thing, and it was just purely for fun. They did it and put it into a contest, and the experience was quite positive. I thought that everybody was really professional, and it was cool to see not only people act professionally, but also we had a blast with it. We had a lot of fun. Rehearsing was probably one of the most fun experiences I ever had. And when I was reading for my character, I was really nervous that I would be rusty, and it was just like riding a bike. And I was just like, I'd forgotten how fun this sort of thing was, acting in plays like I did in high school, and it's even doing those crappy homemade movies that I said are like floating around. Even those, it's like I had a terrific time doing it, and who knows what the future will bring. So, what movies have influenced you, whether you are an actor, director, author, screenwriter, or if you're just an average moviegoer? Tell me what your favorite movies are and why you love them so much, or maybe tell me your least favorite movies and why they disgust you. I want to thank my lovely girlfriend, as always, for her support and for giving me the inspiration for this video. And of course, Memorial Day is tomorrow, and I want to thank all of our veterans who have fought so hard to keep our country safe, both past, present, and future. You guys have done so much. If you like what you've seen here, subscribe, follow me on Twitter. You know what to do. All the links are listed below.